Greetings and salutations. My name is Colin Moriarty. This is Alfredo Diaz. And Alfredo, we're here to talk about a game that's very special to PlayStation fans.
Yep.
It's called Bloodborne. And it just came out on PlayStation 4 exclusively.
Yep.
To catch people up on this is kind of an iteration or a continuation of the Dark Souls, Demon Souls series. Demon Souls, of course, is a PlayStation exclusive. Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2 were not. They were published by Bandai Namco and on Xbox 360 and PC. With this particular game, which I think is a continuation, at least spiritually, of those games, it is
100%.
exclusive to PS4. It is developed by From Software. It was produced by a Sony-owned studio called Japan Studio, obviously in Japan. And you and I have both spent a few hours with it. So I want to be, you spent more time with it than I have.
Yeah.
But I want to be very clear that we're talking about the game from the guise of a very preliminary place. We have not beaten nearly the entire game. We do not have thoughts on the entire game. This is basically our thoughts on kind of the intro and maybe the first couple bosses.
Yep.
That's fair to say?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I think it's important to catch us up, since you're going to give kind of your opinions on this game about your experience with Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2. Is this your first Souls game?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, from my point of view, this is my first Souls game. I haven't touched any of them, but Bloodborne kind of piqued my interest. I was very scared going into this. I mean, you saw my text. I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to suck. But it was actually, it was fun. It was weird, but fun.
It is weird. I played about 5 hours of Demon Souls and more, about probably twice that much of Dark Souls. And these are games that never resonated with me very much. And that surprises a lot of people because I'm into really hardcore games and really difficult games. For some reason, these games just didn't speak to me, but every time one of them comes out, I get re-intrigued and re-engaged. Okay. And Bloodborne is one of those games that, again, has me re-engaged, especially because PlayStation 4 is somewhat starving for meaty and worthwhile exclusives.
Yep.
So what, kind of going in fresh and new, only knowing what you know from other people talking about the Souls games, what were your initial impressions of that intro sequence and kind of that first town area, which we've seen many times in previews? How did the game treat you?
It was brutal. It was brutal. I think the first encounter when you see that wolf creature, right? And I had no weapons. I was like, how am I, what am I doing here? I'm hitting it, and I'm like, I know this game is supposed to be very hard. Everyone and the internet in general has made that very clear to me. So I was like, okay, it's going to be difficult. And I started hitting him, and I died. And everyone's like, oh, everyone on the Kind of Funny Twitch chat was like, you're supposed to die there. And I was like, whoa, this is weird. This is different, totally different. And I don't know, the first town, I slowly began to realize that this game is punishing, but it also is very rewarding.
Yes. And
at the same time, it's I don't know, for me personally, it's a breath of fresh air. It's a game that it doesn't baby you like games do nowadays, where it's like, oh, go here, press A, do this. I mean, there are little what is it, the skulls and the scrolls on the ground that you can get some of the info of, but as far as I know, there's no map that I can go to that's like, go here to this objective, right? So yeah, but it really was nice to play a game that was difficult, and I was like, I need to focus and I need to actually pay attention to what I'm doing.
Yeah, it is one of those games. I do appreciate it's people get mad at me when I use this word to describe it, but I do feel like the game is obtuse, and I think that it's intentionally so. That's the way it's designed. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a game that is vague. And that is the way it is, because it is supposed to be a risk-reward kind of system. The thing is that the risk is that you die sometimes dozens of times before you are rewarded. And I saw your death count on Twitch. I tuned in a couple times, and it was not very high. Mine was somewhat similar. Here's the thing about Bloodborne that bothered me, and then that I started to kind of understand, is that when we got the game early, and I sat down and played, I'm like, all right, here we go. And the first thing I didn't expect was that the first section of the game is the section of the game that they showed us over and over again. And I did not expect that, because I remember playing it in preview in that particular part of Yharnam where I'm like, this is kind of hard, and it seems like they're throwing us in the middle of the game, but they weren't. They were throwing us in the very beginning of the game, and I did not expect that. So I was like, all right, it was a little embarrassing, but I played it. I died a couple times, and I'm like, it's the same loop. I don't want to play this. And I talked to the guys because we had some plans to do videos, and my plan, and I was like, I have nothing worthwhile to say about this game because it's just not speaking to me. I don't think it's a bad game. I just don't think it's a game that is made for me. But then last night, my girlfriend went to bed because she gets up at the ass crack of dawn, and it was about 8:30 or 9. I'm like, I'm gonna hang out and just play Bloodborne again. And what I did was I spent another 2 or 2.5 hours with the game, and I started to get it. I started to get it. And you're right. There's something rewarding about it. As I deliberately slink through the streets of the town and figure it out and kill an enemy. And there's, for instance, in that beginning section, there's a road.
Yep.
There's a huge pyre on fire that they're looking at, and enemies are walking back and forth. There are enemies flanking both sides, and I was slowly for like a half an hour just peeling them off, getting one of their attention, 100%. Then just running away and letting them follow me, and I felt so rewarded as I figured it out. Here's the thing that pisses me off though, and something that I think the game can be better about is that for as brutal and sadistic as it is, I get to the first boss, and I die, and then I get kicked all the way back to the beginning of the section, and I have to do it all over again. Now I respect that. You keep your gear, you keep your level, you lose your souls, or whatever they call it in this particular game.
The echoes.
Yeah, the blood echoes, souls.
Blood echoes, yeah.
And you just have to do it all over again. And I'm like, you know what? That kind of sucks. Because as hard as the game is, I want to feel rewarded more often. So how did you feel about that? I mean, were you frustrated? Because you certainly couldn't have beaten that first boss the first time did you beat him the first time you encountered him?
No, 100% not.
And were you frustrated when you went back and had to kind of do it all over again? It seems a little repetitive, and that was one of my gripes with it.
So yeah, I mean, I died and I was just like, wow, I got my ass kicked, and like I lost all my blood echoes, and I was like, this is difficult, and then I had to run through the whole thing again. But then like, I don't know, it's just I've never played any of the previous games, but I just thought to myself, there's gotta be a different way. There's gotta be something to make this a little easier. There's like a secret passage that makes it quicker for you to get to the boss if you wanted to. And then I started just realizing like, okay, like I started trying to figure it out, right? And so from there I was like, maybe I should just keep killing everything, build up like the currency, and then level myself up, and then come back to it. And then from there, I was like, okay, I get this. Like, I kind of get the rhythm that's going on here. But it's very punishing. I feel like there's a lot of times where, like, because I had a lot of like blood echo currency, I think that's what it's called, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just walked over there, and I was like, oh, boss fight, here it goes. I lost everything, and I'm not getting that back. And it's this, I don't know. I soon began to appreciate the fact that it was really about like kind of testing the fences here and there around the new areas, right? Where it's just like, well, I see, here I can go here, I go there. It's like, that kind of looks like danger. I should go back to, to the hunter's dream. Is that what they call it?
Yeah, you go to the dream. Yeah, I think it's called the hunter's dream. Yeah, they're kind of the hub world.
Yeah, hub world. You go there, and then it's like I expense everything that I got, and then I go back out and then explore again. So once I got into the rhythm, I started appreciating it a lot more. But it was definitely rough, and it's not my usual cup of tea. And a lot of the kind of funny community members on the Twitch channel were just like, this is very weird, but it can be very rewarding.
Yeah, I think that I think it's been there since Demon's Souls, and I think Demon's Souls had it and Dark Souls had it. I didn't play Dark Souls 2. There's a hook. The hook is that if you are sadistic enough to stay with it, you will eventually be rewarded. And there is something to be said about that. Some people feel that way about the way I play Mega Man. I mean, it's like this isn't fun. This is hard. This is fucking impossible. Like, and I get frustrated watching people play that game because I'm like, it's not as hard as you're making it look. And I think that people probably feel that way with me. Certainly in our Let's Play, where I couldn't even figure out how to fucking equip a weapon in Bloodborne. But you're right. The cycle is there. The call and response of the game is essential. And I really did start to get it. And what is funny, because it's one of those games, as we've gone through today and kind of gone through the motions, recorded some podcasts, did some things where I'm thinking about the game.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about getting back into it. I'm thinking about how can I approach this boss differently, and how can I level up my character in such a way that's effective, and did I miss an item? And I know I did. I know that there's a way, and we won't spoil anything, but I know that there's a way to make that boss easier, and someone had told me about it. So I was like, there is an incredible amount of depth here.
Yeah.
And I'm intrigued by it. And I think that the way this game is being received, it's got the low 90s in Metacritic right now, which is extremely high. This might be the first killer app must-have game for some people on PlayStation 4. I don't think Killzone was that game, even though I think it was great. I don't think Infamous was that game. I think that, and I definitely don't think The Order was that game. I think that this might be that game. And so I think this is a substantial release for PlayStation 4 as well. And you, as someone who kind of errs more towards playing on Xbox, is this the game that kind of is introducing you to more of what PlayStation's about? Is this the game that's kind of getting
100%? So I was intrigued by this game, and I was like, you know what? Like, I've always wanted to get into, PlayStation. So I bought it. I bought a PlayStation 4 Bloodborne, and then I played it for the first 2 hours, and I died a lot. I didn't get it, and I was just like, well, this might have been a huge mistake. But then I feel like that experience is the experience that a lot of players are going to have, because a lot of people are getting into this. Like, oh, it looks intriguing, but I've never played any of the previous Souls game. But I feel like everyone needs to just kind of realize that they're going to have to rewire their brains to work differently. That from my experience, I've come to accept the fact that everything has a rhythm. When it comes to the enemies or how you progress through the world, it's all a rhythm that you just have to kind of find out. And then from there, you can kind of do what you got to do.
Yeah, I agree in the sense that the rhythm is that there's no recourse for making a mistake. That you can find yourself dead very quickly.
100%.
And that's, I think, one of the coolest things about it is that you really you bite off more than you can chew and you're dead.
Yeah.
And I think, and you don't have a bunch of hit points and you can run away like you're dead. And but there's a sense of wonder to the game, and I think that we agree on that. I remember in the beginning section I fell unintentionally into some sort of subterranean chamber full of like rats and these kind of fishmen looking soldiers. And as I was on my way to this first boss, and I'm like, I don't think I'm supposed to be down here, and I don't really want to be down here. And in the distance, I see a ladder that goes back up to the terrain, but I got to get through all of this stuff. And there are traps down there and enemies trying to kill you, but tucked in a corner down there is new armor that makes me much stronger. And I was like, and the armor actually makes me look like a dragoon from Final Fantasy IV, which I thought was really cool. And I was like, okay, so like there's a reason to go down here. Yeah. There's a reason to be patient, and I feel a little bit more powerful and a little more able to take on the world until I got to the boss and he kicked my ass. So I'm glad you like it. I like it too, and I think that it's a game that I'm coming around upon, and it makes me wonder, after years of frustration of not understanding Demon Souls and not understanding Dark Souls and understanding why people like it and understanding that the games are good, but not quite understanding the feedback mechanism that's in the game. I think I'm finally, something is starting to click in my head, and it makes me feel good. Like one less thing I have to fucking worry about in my life is why I don't like Dark Souls. The one thing I'm going to be interested to see moving forward is, I think that Bloodborne will definitively get a sequel, and I think that because it's going to do very well. I mean, the game just came out, but it's going to do very well. It's going to sell a couple million copies at least, and it is a PS4 exclusive, and I wonder how From Software is going to juggle the inevitable release of Dark Souls 3 with Bloodborne 2, and I'm interested to see how they juggle Dark Souls 2 with Bloodborne, and how they just differentiated these games are identical to each other in many ways, but for two different publishers, for two different audiences. It's very interesting. So there's a lot of juggling to be had there, and I'm interested to see like how From Software has basically just gone to be the Souls developer. Anyway, Alfredo, thank you for joining me for this. I think we'll have maybe more impressions of this in the next week or two as we play more of it. Maybe we'll do another video or we'll do something on the Gamescast. But in the meantime, you can tune into us on Twitter for more information on Bloodborne. I'm sure we'll be tweeting about it here and there. I'm at No Taxation. Alfredo is at The Alfredo Plays. And you can follow Alfredo. He quit IGN, in case you don't know, to Twitch full time. Yeah. So twitch.tv/Alfredo Plays. No there. Alfredo Plays.
Alfredo Plays.
So Alfredo, thank you for joining me.
Yep, no worries.
We'll see you guys next time on Kind of Funny Games.